Hi everyone, it's Eliza. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm giving you my April reading wrap up because I've read, I think, 6 books in April, and well, no, that's a lie because 2 of them I'm still reading, but I don't care. Let me tell you very quickly first about the first book I finished in April, which was These Violent Delights by Micah Nemereva. I had wanted to read this for like 5 years, finally picked it up. I was really highly anticipating for 5 years reading this book about 2 boys in college set in the 1970s in America, and it is about their twisted, toxic, obsessive romance with each other and how that leads to an act of violence, which is in the prologue. And then you go back in time to how the boys met, the evolution of their relationship. I have a full video that's like 20 minutes discussing this book with a non-spoiler section and a spoiler section at the end that's very clearly distinguished. So if you want to know more about this, I'm going to send you that way because I don't really want to repeat what I said there. I had and have very mixed feelings still about it, even though I finished it a few weeks ago. But I still keep thinking about it. So do with that what you will. These Violent Delights. The next book I want to talk about is the final book in a series that I love that I've mentioned before, and it is Mockingbird Court by Juno Black, which is the 6th and final book in the Shady Hollow series. I've talked about the Shady Hollow series before many times. The Shady Hollow series is a set of individual murder mysteries with a cast of characters who are all animals. Even though they are murder mysteries or mysteries, some are less violent than others, they are very cute, kind of whimsical. It's a bit like Gilmore Girls with the focus on the community and the interesting cast of characters you've got who are all quirky in their own way. Our main character is a vixen who is a journalist. So she wants to go investigate and get her nose into the goss of what is going on in the town when things happen and characters end up dead. Even though some books in this series are quite easy to solve, I did love this one as well. I couldn't work out the why initially, but as soon as we had some things revealed, I was like, that gonna be the murderer, and I was right. Our main character, the vixen, grew up in the city and then moved to the town of Shady Hollow where most of the stories take place. It was fun and interesting to get to know a bit about her backstory of her life in the city before she came to Shady Hollow. It was a nice way to round out the story, but I am quite sad it's coming to an end because they were very much my go-to. I know what I'm expecting, and even though it might be predictable at times, I still really enjoyed it, and it just made me feel all warm and cozy inside. And I don't really love overly cozy twee kind of books, but this series, I'm gonna miss it. But I will reread it, I'm sure, at some point. So if that sounds like your cup of tea, I definitely recommend it. The next book. This next book was not my cup of tea, and I feel like I want to write or film a full review of it in depth, including a spoiler section. I have a lot of thoughts on it. And this next book is Broken Country by Claire Leslie Hall. Broken Country is the story of... where do I begin? For some context, I saw this book trending online months and months ago, and I looked at some of the reviews and then thought, oh yeah, maybe this doesn't sound like my cup of tea, so skip, whatever. I've got enough books to read on my shelves and at the library and everything. At our last book club, this is the book that ended up getting chosen. So I have read it, even though I am not a fan, and even though it's not terrible at all, I just did not vibe with it for multiple reasons. So let me tell you what it is. Might be helpful. It follows our main character, Beth, a woman growing up in Dorset in England in the 1950s and then 60s. There's kind of 2 timelines, almost 3, sort of, which I'll get to in a second. In the 1960s, we understand that she's married to a farmer called Frank, and that they had a son who sadly died a couple of years before. We flip between that when her old flame comes back to Dorset to live with his son, who is around the same age as their son would have been if he was still alive. Beth, her husband, her old ex-boyfriend, and ex-boyfriend's son come back to be the neighbors again, okay? That's the present in the 1960s. Then we go back and we alternate between that and the 1950s when she is growing up as a teenager. So Gabriel, the neighbor, the old flame, we see their relationship develop. It's first love, it's all consuming, blah, blah, blah. And then we go between that and the present with her current husband and the relationship she redevelops with Gabriel because she hasn't seen him for years. And she also gets to know his son and forms a bit of a bond with the son because she feels that kind of gap and void and grief of not having her own son. And you can tell the author wants it to cause tension, and at times it does. However, multiple characters in this piss me off. I listened to the audiobook and I feel like the narrator did a good job with the way that she narrated Beth, because when you look at choices that Beth makes, you're like, girl, what are you doing? And you can see what direction it's going to go, especially with the prologue, because the prologue starts out with, I'll read a little bit of it to you because it's in the blurb that is what it's advertised as too. The first lines of the book are, the farmer is dead. He is dead, and all anyone wants to know is who killed him. Great hook, great start. Immediately we're meant to think, of course, it's the husband. I'm not going to tell you anything more than that. I will say that this was advertised as a sweeping love story with some pacing and twists like a thriller. As a thriller reader, I don't think that that's how they should market it, because a lot of people who did love the book thought that it was really twisty. There are enough seeds planted in there that makes you, if you are someone who's more into thrillers than romance, like me, there are some things thrown in there that are there to make you think and ponder and want to keep reading to solve what happened in the past, what's happening now, is my hunch about this situation correct or not. It does have that to its credit. However, I just always felt a little bit removed from the story, from the characters. I think also, like I said, because it was a book I thought about reading and then was like, yeah, no, actually this doesn't sound like something I'll enjoy. And I was right. But I read it for book club and I'm glad I did, because I'm interested to hear my friends' opinions. Even though this is historical, it does almost feel contemporary. It's just kind of like contemporary, but if there were no mobile phones. There were a couple of historical references to the time, but it wasn't overt. So if you don't like historical fiction and you enjoy more contemporary, this might be a romance that does suit you. It felt quite melodramatic. There are a couple of plot holes. This is why I feel like I need to make a separate review where I can go into spoilers for the people who have read it as well. But it just wasn't my kind of book, even though the writing wasn't bad either. I found it hard to root for the characters. A few choices that people made, I was like, is this what people would really do? But you know, when you're like, there are people who are stupid out there, so maybe it is. And really selfish people too. We won't even get into that. Let me know if you want a proper in-depth review, because I feel like I've got one in me. The next book I read, I also listened to on audiobook, and it is a poetry collection, a bit different for me. It is The Orange and Other Poems by Wendy Cope. I am not really familiar with Wendy Cope, apart from that her name has started popping up in the last few years from some other people that I follow who do book reviews. So I was like, I want to try. I know she has the very famous poem called The Orange. You can find just by itself The Orange read online, which I'll include the link to down below. Emma Watson, I found one of her reading it. She does have a nice narration voice. Wendy Cope narrates it, which I love when an author narrates their own work, because I feel like they know how it's meant to flow. She, before a few of her poems, would give a little quick description or explanation about the inspiration behind the poem or why she wrote it, if it was for something specific. Kind of like sitting down with your creative auntie and having a conversation and feeling quite personal. Although I often enjoyed those more than the actual poems. All of them are quite literal. There's not a lot of language conventions and stuff going on, like symbolism. If you find poetry hard to understand because it feels so abstract and wishy-washy, then this might be a good collection for you. However, sometimes it felt a bit basic or simple. It is an exploration and romanticization of the everyday and the mundane and the beauty and simplicity of your loved ones and gratitude for life, blah, blah, blah. All great things. However, I felt it got a little old, and it's not even a long book. I think the printed book is like 35 pages. So the audio book itself is probably about an hour. I did chuckle here and there, and at other times I felt irritated immensely by certain poems, like the poem about bananas. It drove me bananas. While this was easy to understand, I didn't love it. I feel like that is a lot of my reviews where I'm like, there's nuance to it. Poetry is also hard to rate. It can be so varied between each poem. Overall, I feel quite indifferent, and there were only a few I found memorable or that really resonated with me. Usually I listen to audiobooks at up to a 1.8-ish speed, but with the poems I was like, I actually want to listen to them more at a normal speed to feel like I'm absorbing it, also because they're so short anyway. I listened to it while eating my breakfast I made myself at home, with sitting on the balcony. That was quite nice and wholesome, which kind of goes in with the vibe of the collection. I'll read to you a couple of the bits that I liked. 2 cures for love. 1, don't see him. Don't phone or write a letter. 2, the easy way. Get to know him better. There's another one I liked that I can't remember the name of, but one of the lines, I was like, oh, it was about the author reflecting on a conversation which she had with her dad in the past, and now the present when her dad has passed away. The future, though the enterprise, is sculpting water. It goes on flowing anyhow. Daddy has no future now, and mine is shorter. Which, you know, when you're like, time for an existential crisis. I would definitely listen to The Orange itself again, but the rest of it I might give it a miss. Now we're up to the 2 books that I'm still currently reading. One is a murder mystery called A Will to Kill, and the other one is Aesop's Fables collection. Let me tell you about this one first. My best friend gave this to me for my birthday last year, and I started reading it last month because it was World Fables and Folk Tales or Folklore Week. I've got a whole video about recommendations for books like that. If you want to watch it, I'll put it in the description. This particular edition I really love. It's got 3 different illustrators, so it's just beautiful. By Walter Crane, Ernest Grissett, and Arthur Rachman. Arthur Rachman, I looked up some of his other work and I'm obsessed now. He's one of my favorite illustrators. I've decided. Beautiful illustration. That's an Arthur Rachman one. I can tell. I know his style now. I don't think this is him, but this is pretty amazing as well. Let me know if you want a video on some of my favorite illustrators, because I got a list. I love the way this book is laid out because it has the beautiful illustrations with a very clear purple title to match the cover. It's got the fable itself, and at the end of the fable, also in purple, you've got the overall message or moral of the story. I want to say I find them quite easy to read. However, sometimes I'm reading them and they're usually all in one paragraph that can be quite long, if it's like a page long. Sometimes it's about 2 characters who are both referred to as he over and over. You might initially get who's who, but then you have to backtrack to read and be like, wait, which of the creatures, which of the animals is talking right now? And sometimes after I've read it, the message I take away is very different to the way it's phrased at the end. Well, first off, I don't know who's the person who's written the moral message at the end. I don't know if it was Aesop himself or if it's an editing, publishing choice. But sometimes I'm like, that was the message of that fable? I would have said different. But it might also interestingly be because of over time, values change, human behaviors change based on what's acceptable, what's not, what individuals and society values. So I wonder how that fits in, or at least I think that's how some of this goes. I'll read you just a couple of the messages at the bottom that pop out to me as I flip through. So one is, what is desired in fancy is often regretted in reality. Practice what you preach. There is strength in unity. Experience is a sure teacher. Silence sometimes speaks louder than words. Brooding over troubles increases them. Aesop was a don't ruminate king. Sometimes you get one where it's a bit problematic, but you understand the vibe, because the flying fish and the dolphin has a moral message of revenge is sweet. It doesn't have any but afterwards. It just says revenge is sweet. Let's read together, shall we? A flying fish being pursued by a dolphin swam for safety into shallow water. Seeing the dolphin still after him, he came too far into shore and was thrown by the waves high and dry on the sand. The dolphin, eager in pursuit and unable to stop himself, was also stranded. The flying fish, beholding the dolphin in the same condition as himself, said, "Now I die with pleasure, for I see my enemy has met the same fate." I get it. Let's move on to the last and final book, which I am currently reading, A Will to Kill by R.V. Rahman, which is a very classic Agatha Christie vibe murder mystery set in the Nilgiri Mountains in India. This is the first in a series of individual murder mysteries. The first character we meet is a Poirot-like detective, Harith Athreya. He is invited by a very wealthy, I say old man, he's not that old, he's in his 60s, called Bhaskar Fernandez. Bhaskar is the patriarch to a family, and this family is kind of cursed to die suspiciously. Some people say it's a family curse, some people say where they live in the mountains is haunted. The manor that they live at is creepy and eerie, and even though the mountains are beautiful, they are usually shrouded in mist. And people have sworn that they have seen ghosts wandering the grounds. Bhaskar has invited the investigator because he has a feeling that his family members might want to kill him for his fortune, and because everyone previously, his predecessors in his family, have all died under suspicious, possibly haunted circumstances. But also he's invited all his family, which is like 12 people, to dinner to stay in the house. So Bhaskar has actually written 2 wills, so depending how he dies will tell us who gets the money, and we're not sure who's getting what. There's also whispers of human sacrifice having happened in the chapel in the past. The chapel does play a role in the story, so that's one of the reasons why it makes me think of Wake Up Dead Man. Rumors of family curses and family dynamics, storytelling, I guess, throughout families, which can perpetuate or uphold things that aren't true because people believe them. And what I'm enjoying the most at the moment is kind of reading between the lines of the family's dynamics. There is a plane that you can probably hear. Are you loud enough, bro? This is really fun to read and I can't wait to finish it. Thanks for watching my April reading wrap up. I would love to know in the comments what you're reading, have been reading, want to read next. I don't know what I want to read next. Actually, maybe Wait. I've got a few possible things I might want to read next. I'm not sure. One is Belladonna by Adeline Grace because it's autumn time and I want to read something that's kind of a bit gothic, a bit creepy, but also a bit romantic and mysterious. And this is like a murder mystery, but also features a romance and also possibly ghosts and also death himself. So sounds cool. And then I've also got, now I said I'm not really a contemporary romance reader, but this book, Life Drawing, is a story written by an Australian author, and I went to one of the book events for this. I also have done some life drawing. I like to draw, so I feel like it would be cool. If you had to tell me which one I should read, let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more bookish content from me. And I will include all the things that I referred to in the description below. Have a lovely day, have a lovely May, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.